And hopefully, there's going to be a leadership in the near future which is committed to changing this constitution, because the leaderships that have been there are not leaderships that really, they have consistently not really wanted a more progressive society. And now we're even sliding into, those Kanu days, and we shouldn't do that. And thank you very much. Sorry, I was struggling. I'd been told that this is very important X space, and I was struggling to get in, but I'm happy at least I've had this moment to say something. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. At least you've had of what we had. And very good contribution, actually, a very good reflection on what you've put out there, which gives perspective to how it's been. And you quite correctly put it that there's been a tug of war for a long time. And here it's a question of the capacity of the people who are in charge to lead and direct Kenya a certain way. I think what Julius Nyerere did for Tanzania, leading from the front, what we keep talking about Lee Kuan Yew, who guided Singapore to what it is. We keep dreaming and talking about Singapore when it comes to imagination and copying things, but when it comes to doing what they did, we don't. Eli, I take it back to you as we close the space. I think I've said this so many times.
Just give me a second. As one of the drafters of the Constitution, myself, rest assured, Prof. Is he still there, Professor Kivutha?
Yeah, he's there.
The late chairman of the Committee of Experts, Kitonga, reassured us as we were drafting this Constitution, it will be self-protecting. Remember, the BBI failed. NATCO is about to fail. And this Cherar guy, is it the guy who is bringing this 7-year term president, MPs, up to the MCS, is going to fail. And I want to reassure you all, sleep well. This constitution is self-protecting. And that is the legacy of the late Gitonga. May his soul rest in peace. So I'm not worried. As one of the drafters, I was the only non-lawyer in a room full of lawyers. And my role was to ensure that we all agreed what Kenyans wanted. And this is exactly what Kenyans wanted. The constitution is cheap. It's not expensive. What is expensive is corruption, 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 and tribalism. Somebody wearing a 10 million shilling watch is in office, public office, for heaven's sake. When people are dying of hunger in northeastern Turkana and even some previously, resourced areas. Anyway, let me not take long, but fellow Kenyans, sleep well. Don't worry about this constitution. It will protect itself. Good night.
Thank you, Araha. Very good. Mizani, if you can hear me.
Sure, Obed, and thank you so much for steering the conversation alongside our good friend, the real Joe. We unfortunately must come to the end of the conversation, so we'll take quick remarks from the already available speakers. I know the data analyst, rather activist, had questioned us and requested to put a quick question to Professor Kivutha. I'll allow him a minute to make the question. If possible, take it, please. That activist.
Thank you, Eli. And to everyone, I thank you for taking the time. Mine is a quick one to Prof. He holds a very unique position, having been a former governor and him being a law professor. As to those of you who know, those who don't, we usually do county spaces where we look at Office of Control of Budget reports, which we use for civic education in the various counties. So my question to Professor would be, in these reports, usually the Control of Budget gives recommendations of what the county executive needs to do to fix the various situations that result. But we find that the law is not followed. Yeah, they don't follow it, and it's clearly stated which laws that they need to follow when executing certain recommendations that control of budget has made. So my question to you would be, how can we, the people, hold the county executive accountable? What action can we take to ensure that the law is followed? Is it doing an audit, a citizen audit, or what exactly can we do? And for context, I can read one of the recommendations that are found in most of the reports, and I quote, "The government requires that salaries be processed through the IPPD system, and the county is advised to fast-track the acquisition of unified personnel numbers for their staff. The County Public Service Board should regulate staff engagement on contract and casual workers as provided under Section 74 of the County Governments Act 2012. Further, strict compliance with the approved staff establishment should be maintained." So, Prof, please give us a perspective of you when you were a governor and also as a law professor. Thank you.
Maybe I'll take the final submission from the rest of the speakers before we can actually have Prof to give that as his final kicker. I will allow Wendy. Wendy, you've been a good student today. You have contributed equally. Would love to get your final remarks. Kindly, the mic is yours. A minute and a half.
Hi, thanks, Eli. And I think I wanted to speak to Western and answer, but like Ekurwa Court already spoke to the ethnic issue. It's about equity. And I think he said it, he articulated it well, that no one is stopping anyone from speaking their ethnic language. It's more about equity. So how do we include small communities? And so Western, again, there's the need to recognize, as I said, to recognize ethnicity, but not for grounded. So you'd mentioned South Africa. And I think as a national leader speaking your ethnic language, maybe you should reconsider that. But anyway, about people keep saying we don't have a culture and what are our values. I think going back to our ancestors, the Mau Mau, I think I just finished reading a grain of it. Please don't tell my mom, because I was supposed to read it years ago. But then, so we are the land of free men and women. Of course, me being a feminist scholar, we're the land of free men and women. And our cries for freedom sent shivers even to a small island in Bioko, now Equatorial Guinea. And so I think that has remained consistent even with the Gen Z movement now. Our cries for freedom. We are the land of the free. And and perhaps I should land at that, because and maybe as I land again, I'll proudly say I was Professor Migai's student. Okay, now I land. Bye.
You never cease to amaze us. I expected you'd say you were a student to Professor Kivutha here, but Professor Migai is equally a good professor of the law. Let's get any final remarks from I'm convoluted here. Uncle Fred Obachi Machoka, thank you for making time to be here. As a very veteran broadcaster, we celebrate you. But as you questioned about who gets to decide how our constitution is implemented, you also have your own voice to add. You've questioned why we have a lot of young people advocating on X and they never get to vote. How do we translate this X energy to the X on the ballot? Obachi.
I think this is a result of frustration, because when I look at, I'm slightly old, so I've seen I've watched the political space a while. I've watched the political space when Honorable Ruto and the team were talking about being vijana wa kidijitali. And then I've seen them grow old. And then we have had people like Babu Owino and people like Ndindi Nyoro, young people coming in, and so on and so forth. I think the voter is frustrated because every time they bring in young tax, so to speak, to represent them in parliament, where people assume that is where there is leadership. Like I said, to a pedestrian thinker or the guy in the streets, a leader ni mwanasiasa. Then you find that the people who are voted in as young people who are supposed to think independently and probably not spring this tribal card end up being assimilated into the system. I don't know, Kivutha Kibwana might help us. What happens in that parliament is like there is a curse that anybody who gets to parliament stops thinking. So you find that once people have been absorbed into that same status quo, then people feel like we are not having any changes. So what I can only encourage people to do is that within your small space, whether it is you and your wife and children, or you and your mother, or you and your husband, let there be a conversation about how we can change Kenya so that we become like few clusters. And when all these clusters get to combine and we are thinking the same way, probably we can make changes. Otherwise, if we go a bit global, we may never change anything. We are being frustrated, and some of us in our small space, we try and say what we think people should do. And the only keyword here is integrity. That do what you think should be done within your space without anybody looking and without you demanding to be applauded for doing the right thing. I tell people, do good for no good reason. That's my mantra on air. But I want that teacher to also teach his children that it is good to do good. And it is even better to be seen to be doing good, even if you don't get applauded for it. Thank you.
You know, Uncle Fred, I would have released you because of age, but I realize you also love life. When are you inviting us to the ranch? Because how much is your
The
capacity?
Our capacity is up to about 1,500. We can actually have many
Awesome.
people at the
You know
ranch.
why I
Yes,
asked you that?
yes.
I will ask Obeds to tell you why I asked you that. Obeds, please, now shine and show you know how
No,
to
no,
speak.
you're being a bully. But Uncle, I went to school with your son, and we played together. He was our striker for a long time. He's invited me a lot of times. It's me who's failed to come. So now, Eli, you happy I've revealed the truth?
Tell Uncle about the upcoming event because we might just want to switch.
Well, we're having a conference. We're looking at having a conference on in the month of March next year. We did one this year, but we want to do one that's different. It's not your ordinary kind of conference that we talk about. We want to use something called open space technology, where you have kind of like an X space in the open where you get to see people physically. And you have people sitting in different areas, different conversations going on, and you're able to move within from one point to another depending on the conversation that's being held. Then people can vote on what they agree, and then we can see how we put traction to that, because we want to come up with something that is tangible and can be followed. I'm sure it's nothing different, but want to do it differently than what other people have done. The concept paper is out, and you can check our contacts on mizani254.org, our website, at the bottom, how to contact us. And we'll be happy. We're looking for people to collaborate with so that we make this a reality, and we'll be happy to engage. Mizani, I think I've done that.
Awesome. And just one thing that was left out, we are hosting an event, and that is the conference. The theme is purpose driven leadership. And we are not just doing it on X, Uncle Fred. And therefore, if we can have a sideline conversation, I will be happy to see if we will come to the ranch. Maybe we can eat more ostrich. Thank you for
Yes.
being here. We appreciate you.
Karibu, thank you.
Asante sana. Now let's move to the next final speaker, and Western, we will give you one more chance to make your really final remarks and overview of the conversation we had. Please.
Thank you, Eli. Eli, Wendy, probably she doesn't get me. Wendy, I'm averse to ethnic balkanization, very, very much so. And therefore, what I'm saying is I'm inviting the Kenyan political elite and you and me and everybody else not to be ashamed of who we are. It's not the diversity of Kenya that renders Kenya politically unstable. It is the political elite who, instead of harnessing the diversity of the country, elects to exploit it for parochial power and economic ends. So if you teach people their mother tongue, their local languages, you're not balkanizing the society. The Japanese speak Japanese. Koreans speak their language. You can go on and on. In China, they speak their languages. That doesn't make them any less globally competitive. So you can, borrow selectively from elsewhere, but you do not borrow while you look down upon what is yours, which is what we do. So Wendy, Peter Eke, a Nigerian social scientist, in an article written way back in 1975, you can look for it, Colonialism and the Two Publics, argues that one of our enduring challenges in Africa is that we become extremely nervous and jittery every other time we find falling short of the so-called international standards. You find in most African universities, they'll do things, and when you ask them, why do you do these things? The answer would be, these things are being done in Harvard, in Oxford. There's no other justification. And you can see it even among our political elite. Why do you introduce an ID card that expires? It's done in Uganda, it's done elsewhere. We don't want a society like that. We must have justification for the things we do, because those things matter. Those things, we understand why we're doing them, not because somebody else is doing them. And therefore, heritage is important. Our cultures are important. Our languages are important. Our history is important. So that's the point I'm making. Eli, Mizani, and Obed, sincere appreciation once more. Let's keep talking. Talking, especially when you talk back to power that is subverting the rule of law, is an act of subversion. And that's why autocratic regimes proscribe freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, and many other civil liberties, because they don't want being talked back to. So we must continue talking. It's not doing nothing. It's where we begin by framing, our thoughts and our roadmap on what to do vis-a-vis our challenges. So it's not being cynical, as Akuru would put it. I would celebrate. If things are working, I celebrate. But if things are not working and I celebrate, that's delusional. That's being caught up in a cloud cuckoo land. We don't do that. In scholarship, we stick to facts. And through facts, then we can find a resolution to our challenges. Thank you so much. We'll keep talking. Pleasure. Good night.
Good night to you, Western Shilaho. I love the fact that there was something about cuckoo, and I was here about to start singing Going Cuckoo. I remembered I eat that a lot in my meals. That activist had a question for Professor Kivutha Kibwana. Being a good professor, I'll give him 3 minutes probably to respond to the issue of holding the counties accountable when it comes to management of resources. Professor, your timer starts now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mizani, Obed, and Eli, and for all colleagues here. let me very quickly say, how come like Uncle Fred, and that's a big name in our country, when he says what happens when people go into parliament, uh, they go, through parties of other people because the parties are owned, and so you are invited, and when you arrive there, you do what those who have been there do, and that is why even people are very positive. Whether it was Orengo, it was Anyang Nyong, initially they were thrown out. They were thrown out of the political party, which belonged to somebody else. So, and that begs the question: when are we going to have actually what is truly a progressive, political representation, to some extent, like the way there is in South Africa, Kinamalema, I don't know about Umkhonto wa Sizwe, that kind of initially NC, initially, TANU, CCM. So that's really a question, that needs to be answered. And like during 1992, 1997, the opposition was fragmented and it got defeated by a minority of the votes that Moi got. So in the same way, if all these people, good people, are in X spaces who are crying for change of their country, the young people got killed, abducted, and all that. If this doesn't translate into a progressive movement so that there is a party or a coalition of parties that Kenyans can say, yes, this is now what you have been waiting for. Again, this will be wasted and we will do other XX spaces, maybe some other time after 2027. I think maybe when you discuss purpose-driven leadership in Machoka's ranch, Uncle Machoka's Fred's ranch, one thing that needs to be focused on is police reforms. Because actually, when the political elite discover that they're in a corner, they recourse to the police and they say we are going to increase the price, the salaries, and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's good that people read a novel called Glory by No Violet Bulawayo. In that novel, actually, change begins to happen when the police say they're tired of killing people. They don't remember why they're killing them, killing relatives, killing whatever. So maybe that's something that could be discussed in that particular place. And very quickly, about X-Energy becoming X-Ballot. In the last elections, 8 million young people who were registered didn't vote. And about 3.3 or 4 million had not even registered when they're 18, even registered IDs. So, and now by 2027, another Gen Zs who are under 18 are going to be, 18 plus. So you're talking about 16 million young people. And if those young people, don't translate, their numbers into getting IDs, those who don't have, registering to vote, going to vote, talking to people to tell them that now, we must vote, we must really change, get people who are going to enforce this constitution, including ourselves, the young people. Then again, we are staring at, a dark future. And I liked what Uncle Fred said about wherever you are, please organize there, like micro organizing for change. So that micro organizing eventually and soon is translated into macro organizing through that progressive movement that one talked about. And the languages of people are very important. People's cultures are very important, and maybe even the way to defeat this negative ethnicity is through talking, like what Ango Machoka in the place where he works, where they have those stations, talking to people in their languages to tell them that don't keep on being cheated by these so-called kingpins and so on, who don't care about you but cheat you. They are caring about you. Like Gugi writes, in Kikuyu, and many people read him who can't read English or Swahili, are able to understand all the issues about how change is required to happen. So I think we need to be careful about bastardizing this, to say that this promote negative ethnicity. It's not them. It is the political people who thrive on that. And finally, the question of how come all these things, data activists and how come all these recommendations don't see the light of day and they are disobeyed? And it is from the county assembly is supposed to be the first instance of correcting, holding accountable the county governments, the county executive. Then you go to Senate. Then you go to auditor, general. Then there is also a controller of budget, and all those people, and they say which do this because this law you have not done it. But there is general impunity. So when there's general impunity, and when these people know that they can compromise, people can take them to court and stuff, then some of these things will continue. But I like the question of citizen audit is so critical, because we tried it in Makwen, where from the village people elected, and there was a people's government, which would be in charge of their projects. You couldn't be paid if they don't say yes. And we were getting to the stage of even summarizing those auditors reports and stuff, and then getting them to ask people, how come you are not doing this and you're supposed to do it? So I really emphasize, apart from this layer of saying that there should be accountability as demanded by those institutions of government, independent institutions, but the citizen audit is so critical, because that is how Article 1 of the Constitution is enforced. And I think there's going to be a huge battle between the people and the leadership who want to subvert, the livelihoods of people. And so I really encourage that activists, encourage all the people who are going that route to really continue to build something for the 1450 counties, so that those counties, people know that they can't do monkey business and get away from it. Thank you very much, and good night. And I wish I was here at the beginning. This is really great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Kivutha. And I saw you signed up for a new job. You'll be giving lectures. So if you guys are planning to follow some law lectures, just hit up on Prof. He might be your next mwalimu. Mwalimu, there's a student here who has refused to go home. Na tumemalizana na school fees yake. Wendy, what is this you need to air out before we call it a night?
Thanks, Eli. I think as a student, maybe I just want Western to expound. Who is stopping you from speaking your language? Because you seem to be conflating issues here. We are very proud of our language and our culture, but who is stopping us from speaking our language? And please, relate that to cohesion, because maybe then I will be able to understand. Thanks.
Ms.
All right, I will call that a rhetoric
for
one.
Wendy and Western to finish this business.
The lovely part about this, people have been requesting for their own spaces, and who are we? We offer those, right? So, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we are late into the night. We realize you had a long holiday today if you're in Kenya. Unfortunately, Tuesday means it's back to work, and we have to let you go to take some rest before you resume your daily duties. Having said that, I will welcome the real Joe to make his final remarks, who was our co-host, followed by Obeds, and then any final announcements. The real Joe, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Eli and Obeds. We've had a very good conversation. I actually love the idea of hosting the conference at the ranch. I'm just gonna hold my horses as I also sharpen my teeth in case we have ostrich to eat on that particular day. So I'm looking forward to that. But anyway, one thing I would like to say is, for me, I have a few issues. I have a few problems with our constitution on a few issues, and I'm glad Prof is still here. He can be able to hear some of these issues that I have. Article 145 was given to us in this constitution to be able to, whenever we lose confidence with the president, then he can be impeached. And this article gives that to the members of parliament. And that's where I have the problem. This article clearly states the grounds in which impeachment an impeachment motion can be brought to parliament: gross violation of our constitution, misconduct, and of course, if the president is believed to have contravened both international law and our laws locally. So I have a problem with, first of all, who determines this gross violation of our constitution? Because as I understand that article, it is supposed to be a member of parliament who brings that motion. So who determines that? I have that question. Number two, also, in yesterday's space, I had this problem with our political system, whereby the president of the Republic of Kenya is still the party leader, UDA. And therefore, how then would members of parliament under UDA be able to exercise Article 94 and 95, checking the president and reviewing the conduct of the president? How is that possible if you have your party leader as the president, your party leader, who can also whip you at the party level, again, is the same person you're supposed to review the conduct for? I have a problem again when it comes to Article 119. It gives us a right to petition parliament. And I would love to know if the people, because right now in the current political temperatures, the people have been talking about kufa makanga, kufa dereva. With Article 119, is it then possible? Because I've also seen online people ask, I mean, can we have one member of parliament just table that motion of impeachment? Is it possible that we, the people, can petition parliament to table a motion of impeachment against the president? These are some of the things that I'm conflicted about our constitution. And again, finally, Professor Migai talked about power dynamics. And I'm one of those people who believe power is balanced by power. For me, for this instance, for me, state power against the sovereign power of the people. So state power should be balanced by the sovereign power of the people. I got very concerned when I heard Dr. Ekuru say that Article 1 it is difficult to bring Article 1 to life. And he tried to insinuate about Article 108 in terms of recalling the president, the members of parliament and things like that. I am one person who has believed that Article 1 stands on its own and it is not dependent on Article 108, because it therefore means balancing the state power with the sovereign power of the people. I wish Dr. Okot was here, but he will play the recording and be able to task him to answer these questions for me later on. But as I yield, the true cost of our constitution for me is not actually the cost of administration. I see it differently. Lack of service in terms of roads, healthcare. We have a new social health authority coming in with a rumor, and I'll say a rumor, with a rumor that it is supposed to bring to life Article 43, our socioeconomic rights. Yet we now have, with this process coming in place, we have people are unable to access healthcare directly against the same article they're claiming to bring to life. These are some of the things that we have as a problem in our constitution, and that is the true cost of our constitution for me. The true cost, again, for me, is lack of development. When we don't have development, and in fact, another cost for me is other than corruption, and we talk about 680 billion a day and things like a year in loss to corruption, roughly 2 billion a day. Other than that, for me, again, the true cost of our constitution is when we have leadership that does not understand what it means to work for the people. That is the true cost for me, because if our leaders would understand that, then we would not have problems even with the cost of administration and things like that. So as I land, I also want to encourage us, be the leader you wish you had. That is my encouragement to you. Good night, and I appreciate all of you who took your time to join our space today, and we've had a great conversation. I'm going to throw it back to you, Eli, so that we can conclude the space. Thank you very much, and I hope we get to eat the ostrich at the ranch. I'm sharpening my teeth, Eli. Thank you.
Thank you, the real Joe. I want to thank everyone who's taken their time to be here. It's really an honor to spend such a long time listening to us have this conversation. For those who are not able to come to the speaker and be able to give your contributions, and those who made your contributions on by comments, we are grateful for taking your time because it also added value to this conversation. Auntie Rosemary, nice to see you. It's really been good. And for I think, without belaboring the point, the reality that we face in this country is that we have very good. Kenya does not have a lack of laws. We have, I think, we are over legislated, if I may say that. The problem has always been having people who have fidelity to the law and who have the intention and desire to implement it. And partly because they're beholden to the fact that it's always about power and being able to control and have resources. I think what Professor Kagwanja calls the Happy Valley problem. So if we Kenyans, as we have we have an opportunity after every 5 years to vet these people. The problem is we've always appointed to leadership positions people who do not have the capacity or wherewithal to do that which is supposed to be done. And the reason is we are looking at people who have numbers in terms of they speak our language, also probably they talk like me, they do things like me, and because of that, we're going to support them, or we do it out of pity. We are looking at a situation right now where the impeachment process for the DP hasn't been properly followed, and all of a sudden, that we've whipped emotions in terms of tribalism. We have people now saying, I'm proper mountain person. We are being targeted, and it's unfortunate that's the case because now we're going back to our tribal cocoons. Maybe sympathy votes. If this guy is gotten off the hook by stay orders from the court, what do you expect? The political dynamic trumps over the constitution, which is really not how it should be. Thank you very much for your time. We Kenyans know what is our problem. We just never want to take the medicine. And until the day we do so, we'll keep having the same problem and we repeat this. But I repeat again, let's all go out there. Let's not look for a savior to solve our problem. We must all be hands on deck. Everybody has to participate in our different ways. We have different abilities and capacities. Let us contribute in what we have. If I'm able to read, I read to the people. If I'm able to marshal people together, let me do that. We cannot all assume that we can go to the streets and do the same thing. Everybody has a role to play, but let's not look for a messiah, because the problem that we find ourselves in, because the colonial system appointed political kingpins from different tribes and made them the barons that they are today. And that's where we find ourselves. Unless we stop waiting for a messiah and all of us go out there and do the right thing, we'll be here talking and talking and talking. Thank you very much. Eli, back to you, and let's end the space.
Thank you very much, Obed, and the rest of the team. Indeed, it has been a long one, but I must say very fruitful. I want to take the opportunity to personally thank our guest speakers, Dr. Weston Shilaho, Senior Lecturer, International Relations, that is at the University of Witwatersrand. And in English, that is Whitewater Beach, right? In Johannesburg. And Dr.
Eli, Witwatersrand.
Yes.
Witwatersrand.
Yeah, you know, that's Afrikaans, and I'm speaking in Netherlands or Dutch, so it's the same thing. You say wit, we say it wit. But thank you very much. I appreciate you, and we do appreciate for you connecting with us on the space. Dr. Ekuro Aukot, that is the party leader, Third Way Alliance Kenya. In absentia, we want to thank him for being here. And Professor Migaya Cage, Professor of Law, University of Nairobi, as always, a pleasure having him and the rest of the team here. And all of the speakers that made it to the platform tonight, we do appreciate you. And we don't take it for granted that you actually gave us time, ears, and even your bandwidth to share this very interesting conversation on the making of the Kenya Constitution 2010. Our conversation continues every single Sunday on the Sunday Schooling. And this Sunday, we turn it a little bit lower from the very political conversation to much more about the church. And what are we talking about the church? That is the corporate church. We are told it's ISO certified. But we will be discussing the drunken master. Let's talk about that this coming Sunday. My name is Lukiani Eli. On behalf of Mizani 254, I want to wish you the very best. And right here in Mizani, where the scales of balance are restored and meaningful conversation thrive, have yourselves a great evening.